Hey everyone, I'm Elliot.
And I'm Phineas.
And we're the Peters Bros, and we are going to rank the Pirates of the Caribbean films. Keep in mind that this is just our opinion. We're not trying to tell you what you should think. This is just what we think of these films. And we love them all. They're all fantastic. Let's just acknowledge that before we get into it. And for those of you who want to chat pirates with us, be sure to tune in at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time this Saturday, June 3rd. And we will have a live stream where we'll talk about Pirates of the Caribbean. We're going to go in order from our least favorite to our favorite.
And discuss each movie and tell you guys why we decided to rank these films the way we did. If you haven't seen all of the Pirates films, I will warn you now, there are some spoilers.
There will be spoilers. So, number 5 is, in fact, number 4.
On Stranger Tides.
There were quite a few things wrong with this film. The biggest glaring one being the absence of William Turner and Elizabeth Swann. Since they were essentially the main characters of the first 3 films, suddenly having them disappear altogether was not a very good idea on the writer's part, and of course that's because the actors themselves didn't want to come back, but the studio still wanted to push the franchise. So really the only reason that On Stranger Tides exists is to make the studios a little more money, and it shows. More of the fundamental flaws with On Stranger Tides are the focus on Captain Jack, because as much as we love Jack Sparrow, he just isn't the right character to carry a storyline. And Blackbeard, who just wasn't as intimidating or interesting as he could have been. I
mean, this film series has some great villains. Blackbeard wasn't very scary.
He wasn't. I mean,
not that he has to be. You have to have a frightening antagonist.
No, but when you're bringing in a character as iconic as Edward Teach, you know, people were super excited for this. Another thing that just didn't quite work as well with On Stranger Tides was the storyline with Philip and Serena, who just came out of nowhere and had a romantic subplot for no reason other than romantic subplot.
Kind of to replace Will and Elizabeth.
Jack Sparrow is such an unconventional character that it's very hard to fit him to any archetype, because he's an anti-hero, but he doesn't quite follow the trajectory of any like mainstream storyline. So there's no official explanation for why On Stranger Tides doesn't quite work, but I think it really has to do with Jack trying to carry an entire film by himself. And he can carry storylines and he can carry subplots, but you need to have other characters.
You have to have a mentally stable character carrying the mainstream storyline.
Because even Barbossa's a little psychotic. Real quick though, the things that actually make On Stranger Tides work are, oddly enough, Johnny Depp and Penelope Cruz's chemistry on screen. Because they have a great on-screen relationship as Jack Sparrow and Angelica, and I think that they're kind of like fun to watch on screen. There was a large expansion of the universe here with this film, adding in the Fountain of Youth and the mermaids. We had no idea that mermaids existed in the Pirates universe until this point. So like that whole thing is really cool, and I appreciate that they took some risks and did some really cool stuff with that. Number 4 on our list is actually number 5, Dead Men Tell No Tales, the most recent. This film had some fundamental flaws as well, but the first half of it definitely shines as a wonderful, wonderful first half of a movie. The main problem with that film, I think, is that it feels like it has too much stuff crammed into it, but not enough of a plot line. Because the plot line is ridiculously straightforward, but there are like certain story elements that were slammed in there last minute that kind of don't make sense. Like Salazar possessing Henry for like 5 seconds at the very end, and the whole anticlimactic reveal of the trident and the destruction of the trident. It was just all handled very, very rushed.
They also had a lot of great ideas for this film, but not a good way to execute them. Like, the idea of Jack and Salazar sword fighting while running along the cannons of two ships, that would blend beautifully with the first 3 films.
If you want to hear more about our thoughts on Dead Men Tell No Tales, we'll link to the spoiler-free and spoiler reviews that we made down in the description box below. So you can go click on those now, or click on them later. Your choice.
Now we're good.
We're moving on, though.
Whatever you want.
Number 3 on our list is actually number 1. Curse of the Black Pearl, the original. This movie is so much fun. It's just like a whirlwind of exciting characters, explosive battle sequences, and just like super witty banter written brilliantly by the screenwriters.
And mostly actually improvised by the actors.
Yeah.
I really want to see what the script looked like, because half of that movie was improvised.
Set in front of the beautiful backdrop of the Caribbean islands, actually filmed on location, and like for the most part actually filmed on real ships. It's just like mind-blowing, and it feels so real, even when they present the supernatural elements of the storyline. It still works, because they just make it like there's something about the tone of the film that grounds it in reality.
They didn't have to live up to anything except for the ride.
Something that's ridiculously fun about that movie, and the first 3 movies in general, is all the little references to the original ride attraction in Disneyland and Walt Disney World that they snuck in there.
It's hard to find things that didn't work with this film, because it had very little to live up to, and it was just all around a great film.
It's just like a sudden explosion of creativity. That's what I think of it as.
Yeah.
The film has special effects that hold up to this day, and a colorful cast of characters. Just like the way that we're introduced to this wonderful world of crazy, zany people is so much fun.
Everything in that film seems like it's part of the same universe, even though it's kind of stitched together from pirate lore and older pirate movies, the Pirate's Ride, just like everything coming together to make a good film, really.
Number 2 on our list, and this is the only time that these numbers are going to coincide, is actually number 2, Dead Man's Chest. This movie is so much fun. We get to go to Tortuga again. We get to meet Tia Dalma, who does not get enough credit for being a fantastic character. And we get James Norrington back, only he's different now, and he gets to be a pirate. And the compass, like we get to find out what the compass does, and it's just like expanding on everything that the first movie did, and introducing us to my favorite villain in the franchise, Davy Jones. And Bill Nighy's performance as Davy Jones is just like, it's out of this world. I love that, like, you know, there's enough human there for you to empathize with him and understand what he's saying, but he adds in these weird jerking movements with his head and the funny, like...
Yeah, I want to know how much he knew of what he looked like, just because of how good his performance was as a octopus-headed fish crab.
He's making weird noises with his mouth. This film also has one of my favorite introductions to Captain Jack Sparrow, because each film has like a new weird crazy scenario that Jack finds himself in at the beginning. The first film, you know, he's coming into the dock on the mast of his ship as it's sinking. The third film, he's in Davy Jones's locker. The fourth film, he's trying Gibbs for being Captain Jack Sparrow. The fifth film, he's inside of a safe in a bank. But the second film tops it all, I think, when he busts out of a coffin that has been tossed off of a cliff and uses the leg of the dead person inside to paddle his way to the Black Pearl.
The first thing we see of him is his hand looking around with his gun. Like, he can actually see.
It's just,
I mean,
it's
not
funny.
questioned, but it's brilliant.
The one major flaw with this movie is the crippling amount of subplots. The movie has way too many characters and way too many plot lines to actually follow until you've watched the movie like 6 times.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like the 6th time that I figured out exactly what was going on all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't need to understand everything for the storyline to work. As long as, I mean, they build up over the course of all the films Jack's character and how much you root for him, so that whatever craziness is happening, you have that point, except for when Jack dies, but then comes back. You have that point, that like rock to hold on to in the chaos.
And can we just have a moment of appreciation for Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley's chemistry? Because they play off each other so wonderfully in the first 3 films. It's just fantastic to watch. So, moment of appreciation, starting now.
Something about the second film, speaking of Orlando Bloom, that is just so great is the character of William Turner. That's where he shines the most, and he has his own storyline on The Dutchman.
with Bootstrap.
They do like to split Will and Elizabeth up as much as they can, as with every single good love story
couple ever.
But this is the film where he's by himself, I guess, for the most part, and he's embraced his inner pirate.
And then number 1 is number 3. My favorite film of the franchise is At World's End, because it is this crazy, spectacular culmination. It really feels like a gigantic climax, which is exactly what it was supposed to be. With the 9 brethren, with the 9 members of the Brethren Court, and Elizabeth becoming the Pirate King, and that speech that she gives on the Black Pearl before they sail into the Maelstrom, and like hoisting the colors, and the hanging of the little boy at the beginning, and Davy Jones and Jack having their sword fight on the mast of the Flying Dutchman, and Will Turner becoming Davy. But there's just, like, it's so wonderful.
It's
like,
a great ending to the trilogy, and then of course they continued it. But
just like, it feels massive when you're watching it. I don't know how much money they spent making that movie, but it must have been a ridiculous amount, because it's just like, it's gigantic. One of my favorite moments in the entire franchise happens in At World's End, and that's the moment when the ship that Barbossa is captaining, that is heading to Davy Jones's locker to rescue Jack, goes over the cliff, and everyone's screaming. Everything cuts to black for a moment, and then they actually pipe in audio from the ride. It's so fantastic, because it's just like, I can't even imagine what it must have been like to sit in the movie theater and be watching this moment when it seems like everyone has just fallen to their death, and then suddenly you hear the music and the cannon fire and the audio of the skull on the flag saying, "Dead men tell no tales." And then the whole sequence in Davy Jones's locker with Jack Sparrow going completely crazy is so fun. It's just like, you'll never see weirder, funnier filmmaking.
In
so
such
strange.
a grounded reality, too.
Yeah. Number 0 on our list is like, comment, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to tell your enemies that we are awesome.
Awesome.
And don't forget to tune in on Saturday.
We are
for
awesome.
our live stream. Don't
awesome.
We are awesome.
Okay, yeah.
Here, come on. You need to say, we are awesome.